Hello and welcome to Cleveland Classic Cinema. Tonight's movie is 1965's The Face of Fu Manchu, directed by Don Sharp.
You have been tried and condemned of crimes almost without number. Your efforts to build an empire of crime have today brought you to the end you so richly deserve. Death to Fu Manchu.
The Face of Fu Manchu.
There's a man whom I thought was dead. Now I believe he's still alive. He's cruel, callous, brilliant, and the most evil and dangerous man in the world. He used as his most trusted servants a gang of Burmese dacoits and taught them to strangle their victims with these prayer scarves from Tibet.
From this fog-shrouded graveyard in London's Limehouse, the evil genius of Dr. Fu Manchu stalks its victims. Christopher Lee as the merciless Dr. Fu Manchu, who cast a black shadow of fear across innocent lives. Nigel Greene as the Assistant Commissioner at Scotland Yard, pitted against a master criminal who dreamed of world domination. Joachim Fuchsberger. Karen Dorr. Her life was balanced against the fate of millions. Tsai Chin as Lin Tan, daughter of Fu Manchu. Guest star James Robertson Justice.
Heading eastward from the Museum of Oriental Studies. It must be stopped.
I saw this back in 1965 at the Riverside Theater on Lorain Road, and I never forgot it. There were a few scenes that were burned into my mind forever, and surprisingly, played just as well when I saw the film again recently, so that was a nice experience. I'm so used to being disappointed by films I loved as a kid that seeing one that didn't disappoint was a real pleasure. We'll get to the plot in a minute, but first a little history. In the late 19th century, a phenomenon called the Yellow Peril began making inroads into the American experience. It was a racially motivated fear that Asians who were streaming into the country to work on the railroad would somehow pervert the American way of life through some kind of osmosis and destroy Western civilization. Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany is generally credited for coming up with the term, and a number of laws were passed to limit the amount of Asian immigrants that were allowed to enter the country. Of course, it was all a lot of hooey, but it was feared that the proliferation of opium dens in Chinatowns and major cities would lead to the deflowering and destruction of our daughters through white slavery and drug addiction. Now, to be fair, that wasn't entirely an unfounded fear. That sort of stuff really did happen, but not to the epidemic proportions the country feared. But, as is still being proven, there is no fear so small that some enterprising politician or writer can't turn it to their advantage, which brings us to Sax Rohmer. Sax Rohmer was the pen name of Arthur Henry Ward, an English novelist. He specialized in detective mystery novels after publishing his first Fu Manchu story, The Mystery of Dr. Fu Manchu, in serialized form starting in October of 1912. It detailed the nefarious deeds of the title character and the work of the intrepid Inspector Dennis Nayland Smith, who, with his right-hand man, Dr. Petrie, eventually defeated the feared master criminal. It was very fast-paced and exciting and became an immediate hit worldwide. After writing 3 novels, Rohmer became bored with the character and didn't write another Fu story until the mid-1930s, this time concentrating on Fu Manchu's daughter, who was just as brilliant, evil, and power-mad as her father. All told, Romer authored 13 books centered around the character, and other authors continued the series after Romer passed away. The character of Fu Manchu is interesting as he prefers to dispose of his enemies in rather arcane ways. He enlists members of other secret societies, such as the Indian Thuggee cult, and others, as evil as he was. Fu was an equal opportunity employer, that employed strangulation and knifing as opposed to guns or bombs. He's one of those bad guys that you get the feeling spends a lot of time inventing incredibly complicated, amazingly slow methods of disposing of his enemies for the sheer joy of being imaginatively sadistic. Of course, these methods never work the way they're supposed to. All they do is give the hero time to figure out a way to escape and foil the bad guy, but they're fun to watch, so what the hell. One of the other things I find interesting is the fact that Fu Manchu has a daughter rather than a son. They say there's nothing quite as strong as daddy love, so of course his daughter, Lin Tang, bends over backwards to please her imperious father. She's got a pretty white streak of sadism in her as well, and in addition is a mistress of disguise. She's just as ruthless as her father and shares the same goal, so this film features positive family values. She's not very bright, though. The film opens with a bang, the execution of Fu Manchu himself, witnessed by his greatest enemy, Nayland Smith. Everything goes as planned, although when Fu lays down and puts his head on the chopping block, he's face up, which adds a rather grisly twist to the proceedings. But you get the feeling that Smith isn't convinced that this is the end, as he remains in the courtyard long after everyone else leaves, staring at the body. As a thunderstorm begins, the credits roll, and we're on our way. Smith is concerned with good reason. After the execution, the crime wave continues, and Smith suspects that it's being controlled by a single leader. He mentions to Petrie a dream he had the previous night that Fu Manchu was still alive. Right after this, a Professor Mueller is kidnapped by none other than Fu Manchu himself, and the former's manservant is dispatched with a red prayer scarf. The body is found, and Smith finds a small metal image of Kali, the goddess of the Thuggee cult, knotted into a corner of it. After examining the body, he sees familiar patterns, and then, well, I'm not going to spoil the movie for you, because this is a pretty good one. There are a few questionable scenes in it, but Sir Christopher Lee was born Christopher Frank Carandini Lee on May 27, 1922 in Belgravia, London, England. He has appeared in an amazing 280 films and television shows over the course of his long career, and is still going as I write this. He worked as a clerk in a number of shipping companies until the age of 17 when he enlisted in the Royal Air Force during World War II. After leaving the military, he joined the Rank Organization and took acting lessons in their charm school, playing bit parts in several films before landing a small role in Laurence Olivier's Hamlet in 1948, which also featured Lee's future friend and partner in horror, Peter Cushing, although they didn't meet until they appeared in their first Hammer horror film, 1957's The Curse of Frankenstein. He later recalled their first meeting. Lee stormed into a dressing room where Cushing was sitting and angrily yelled, "I haven't got any lines!" And Cushing replied, "You're lucky. I've read the script." Lee was incredibly hard to cast due to his height. He stands 6'5", so work was hard to find because he was so much taller than any of the other leading men in the movies. Luckily, his role as the monster in Curse, which turned out to be a smash hit, led to his being cast in other Hammer films. He more often than not played the monster, as in 1959's The Mummy, and was often teamed with Cushing, who often played the lead good guy. When he appeared in 1958's Horror of Dracula in the title role, again without any lines, his career really started. He was a handsome, elegant, yet dangerous Dracula and played the role 10 times. He appeared as Fu Manchu 5 times, Sherlock Holmes 3 times, Mycroft Holmes once, and Sir Henry Baskerville once to Peter Cushing's Sherlock. Interestingly, he was offered the role of Grand Moff Tarkin in 1977's Star Wars, but turned it down. It ended up going to his very close friend, Peter Cushing. He was also the first pick to play Dr. Loomis in the original Halloween, but turned the part down. He later said it was the biggest mistake he ever made. An excellent swordsman, he was injured while filming a sword fight with a slightly drunk Errol Flynn in 1955's The Dark Avenger, and appeared as Roquefort in three Musketeers movies. In 2009, he was knighted for his services to drama and charity. Remembering his good friend Peter Cushing, Lee said, "I don't want to sound gloomy, but at some point in your lives, every one of you will notice that you have in your life one person, one friend who you love and care for very much. That person is so close to you that you are able to share some things only with him. For example, you can call that friend, and from the very first maniacal laugh or some other joke, you will know who is at the other end of that line. We used to do that, and with him so often. And when that person is gone, there will be nothing like that in your life ever again." That is very true. Nigel Greene was born on October 15th, 1924 in Pretoria, South Africa. Educated in England, he was studying chemical engineering when he won a scholarship to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in London. At the age of 24, he was appearing in stage productions of the Old Vic in Stratford-on-Avon, making his film and television debuts in the mid-50s. He played Hercules in the 1963 classic Jason and the Argonauts, and usually appeared as a dominating authority figure. He was a big man. He stood 6'4" and was solidly built, appearing in a number of spy and military films, such as 1965's The Ipcress File with Michael Caine. He died in 1972 at the age of 47 from an accidental dose of sleeping pills. The Face of Fu Manchu is actually a pretty good movie. It certainly stuck with me over the years, and seeing it again, I felt the same thrill I felt when I saw it the first time back in 1965. There were a number of things I recall giving some serious, chills to me back then, like the eyes looking through the carved metal face in the mausoleum, the fate of the town of Fleetwick, and Fu's method of disposing of a traitorous henchwoman. However, looking at it today, there are a number of things that could have been done better, such as the makeup around the eyes of the obviously non-Asian actors, and a rather confusing fight between two of the main characters wherein they completely destroy a laboratory before finally recognizing each other, upon which they completely forget not only the fight, but destroying the lab as well. I chalk it up to being British, but one of them is German, so, you know, who knows what's going on there. Another thing is the fact that, like the Charlie Chan films and God knows how many others, the main Asian characters are played by white actors. In the case of Fu Manchu, I can understand, as there aren't many 6'5" Asian actors, but in an earlier movie, 1932's The Mask of Fu Manchu, Boris Karloff, who was coincidentally Christopher Lee's next-door neighbor and good friend, played Fu Manchu, and Myrna Loy played his daughter, Fa Lo Si. Karloff probably got the role because he was known for playing creepy roles, but Myrna Loy is his daughter? I've seen the movie and she was very good in it, but still. Well, I suppose there are just some things man was not meant to know. So right now, sit back, relax, and enjoy The Face of Fu Manchu right here on Cleveland Classic Cinema.